My guest today is Sean Millea. He is a filmmaker, a comedian, and a musician, and he's one of the most talented, creative, underrated creators in the world right now. I genuinely believe that. And I'm so excited for you to listen to this conversation today because you're going to hear an exclusive, behind the scenes, never before told story about him and Shia LaBeouf. You're going to hear a story about how he got a bunch of interviews with Ariana Grande and Tom Holland. And you're going to understand why he and Mark Norman are friends. Sean, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yep.
I really appreciate it. You're an absolute legend in terms of video editing, creativity, and storytelling, and I'm excited to dive into the story here today.
Okay, thank you. Too kind, I'll say, but thanks. I don't consider myself a legend, but that's cool.
A legend in the making.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that.
So I want to start off between the similarities between boxing and comedy.
Okay. You want me to talk about that?
Please.
I would say, honestly, the fear I think is similar when you're starting out. Like I remember when I first started like doing boxing, I think it was high school. I like went into it and the fear of getting punched in the face is like, oh my God, am I really about to go do that? Like, and then like asking people that already did it, you'd be like, wait, like, does it hurt? Like, what is that like? And I think it's similar, like starting stand up, you're like, oh my God, like you got to get up there and try and make people laugh. And like, what happens when they don't? And I think that's definitely a similar, the anxiety around it is for sure the same. And then obviously you're like in front of an audience, I guess, and it's just you and them. And then in the case of boxing, it's somebody else. But I think mostly it's the fear and the getting hit in the head is probably just about as scary as bombing in front of a large group of people, I would say. So I would say that's probably the similarities.
When was the biggest fear for you with anything creatively?
Creatively, biggest fear. Honestly, it's funny because the more of a following I grow, I guess I get more fear because I'm like each video I post, it feels like there's more eyes on it, like and like right on the jump, And so when I do post something like that rap video or stuff like that, I'm like, damn, like if there's something I didn't see in this that's going to piss people off, I'm going to find out, And so I think that it's like the more I grow, the more I'm like instilled with anxiety and fear and like, which is not how it should be, but I'm just like a ball. I'm like this pillow thing. I'm just like a tangled mess of anxiety. So like that's kind of like the biggest fear for me.
You're messing with that pillow a lot. You want to remove it or?
I kind of like playing
Okay.
with it. Yeah. Do you think it's distracting?
Well, it might be distracting to the viewer.
I'll put the pillow down.
I love it. No, but when you like thought about what it would feel like to have a large following versus what it actually feels like right now, what are the differences?
Well, I would say it's like a lot of my comedian buddies probably are like, oh, like at first, like, whoa, Mr. TikTok, like, whoa, you have a big following. And it's like, I think they see it as like to me, it's like, I still feel like I have achieved nothing really. Like, I'm like, okay, I made some fun TikToks, but like in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't feel like I've done really anything. So like, I would say it's like a moving goalpost. Like, cause I want to like maybe write films rather, and like write for TV and stuff. And so, and I want to like make larger art, and so it's cool to have a following, but it sometimes feels like video game numbers, like GTA or something, where I'm like, oh cool, I got like all this money and I could buy a GTA house. But like in the grand scheme of life, it doesn't really feel like much, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not to be pessimistic, I'm grateful and all that. I'm
For
like,
sure.
It's cool. And I'm like, hopefully indicative of an ability to be creative in other worlds and stuff. But for the most part, it's like, it's just one little building block on the artistic endeavor.
When you say like larger art, what does that mean exactly?
I guess like film and music. I want to do music and like even like, and also I go back and forth. Some days I'm like, maybe I'm just like aspiring to do something that I'm going to realize I'm not interested in. But like I like people like Bo Burnham, Childish Gambino, I think, is awesome because they're guys that like they do it all, and especially Bo because he started with YouTube. It's like makes music that I would listen to unironically, but then has these comedy specials that are also music, but like, and then he's making movies and stuff, and I'm like, I just think it's cool. Like, he's not like he did Vines and stuff, and he did YouTube videos, but he also has like a special and like a TV show and all this stuff, and I would like to have more deeper artistic ventures, like I took Shakespeare in college, and I think Shakespeare's sick, dude. I read a lot, and I was like, dude, this guy's deep as hell. And, I'm not discovering anything new by saying that, but like I don't know. I want to try doing deeper like script writing and like stuff like that, and I'm not gonna do that with TikToks. TikTok's cool, and I was saying before, like it feels like I'm making them so that somebody in Hollywood will reach down and be like, hey, now we'll give you money to go make something bigger. Like, a movie's 1,000 TikToks, like, so yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know. I might also be like an artistic diva by saying all that. Somebody listening might be like, this guy sucks, dude. Like, I don't know. So
when did you realize you were creatively inclined?
Well, dude, I remember when I was a kid, my parents like had me audition for like a commercial, and I remember being in the audition, and apparently there was a callback, but I was getting my tonsils removed, and they told me about that. They're like, yeah, they wanted you to come back to like try for again. And I remember as a kid being like, no, like I could have been an actor, and being in school, like, dude, being in school, like in elementary school, I'll be like, I would have been so much cooler than all these kids if I was in a commercial, like. And I guess like ever since then, I think I like wanted to be like famous, like as a kid. But I was always like funny. I remember like making kids laugh pretty easily. And I also remember the turn. Like I remember being like in elementary school, I remember like being able to, I don't know why, but like you ever take CCD? No. It's like a Catholic thing, but like you'd go to like after school, there'd be like, anyway, I'd be disruptive by like saying like weird shit like peanuts and shit, like just like random shit would make kids laugh. And I remember the turning point where like it used to be really easy to make them laugh with nothing, and then it was all of a sudden like, okay, now you have to be a little clever, so anyway,
was that a reflection of age, or was that a reflection
I think it was
of
age?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was age. I think it was like all of a sudden I was like, okay, I can't just like be but anyway, like I was always like class clown, disruptive somewhat, so
you even listed that on your resume.
I did.
As class clown was one of the first things you listed
on my resume. What you saw my resume?
Yeah.
How'd you see my resume?
We do our research here.
Is it on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Dude, I didn't know that anybody could. I thought I had to like give it to somebody to say, oh wow, damn, I didn't know that.
3.6 GPA.
Whoa, jeez, I got to take a look at that. That's crazy. I got to reassess my LinkedIn profile. But yeah, I was always like that. So I don't know. Pretty young, I always feel whenever people like ask me that, like, when do you, and I'm like, oh, I was class clown. I always feel like, I don't know, like a narcissist. Well, when I was a kid, I was making kids laugh, and I was always a class clown, but that is the truth. I was good at it when I was a kid. So I guess pretty young is the quick answer to that question.
What are like some of the stories, or a story that comes to mind with you being a class clown where it was like, oh, I'm chasing this feeling again? Is there any that come to mind of impactful moments?
When I went to NYU, definitely like I started to like re-achieve it, because like when I first got there, I remember feeling like, oh, this is like a prestigious school, and I'm like nervous to like everybody's probably super smart, and at first I was pretty quiet in class and stuff, but once I got through like a year or two, I started to like started to chirp and stuff, and I could get the class laughing. So I would say that's when when I would get it again. And then at work sometimes, like I'll crack a joke in the office and during a meeting, and it'll go over well sometimes. So I definitely still have it. I stopped taking Adderall recently, because I'm like I was only prescribed it in college, but I'm not as good at being class clown on Adderall. I'm more like let me pay attention, and but when I'm not that, I'm a little more on the comedic ball. So
Well, what I find interesting is how social media and content is really just expanding your personality beyond the classroom and doing the same thing, but for a stadium of the world.
Yeah, for real. For like but it's hard too because like I mean for me at least I'm like doing TikToks and so it's like show it in a minute, you know, and so that's the hard part. Although podcasts are cool because you can kind of show it, but I'm still trying to get good at podcasting because, like, I come on and I'm like, oh, God, like, cameras are rolling. I'm like, oh, geez, like, everything I say is on the internet now and stuff. So, but yeah, it's definitely like it's an extension of your personality. And the better you can show it, if you have a fun personality, the better it'll do for you.
100%. So, you know, you mentioned being in your head, and I was talking to you before we press record about how you were interviewing some of the legends of comedy in Mark Normand and Young Gravy in terms of music. And you're talking about, I'm getting so nervous. Like you're interviewing them and letting them know that as it's going on.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that as the interview, but I'm curious why you actually got so nervous. It's just a human being on the other side.
Because I just get in my head and I'm like, it's just the knowledge that I'm like, oh, that's a camera. Like, yeah, nobody's in here right now, but like, there's somebody watching in the future. And like, so with Young Gravy, Mark Normand especially, like, he's a great guy. I know he'll post the whole podcast on his YouTube. So he gets like, I think he's at like 25 or 26,000 views on that. So I knew that sitting in the room with him. And obviously I had control where I can edit out things if I need to. But I respect the hell out of him. And so it's just like wanting to be cool with him, wanting his audience to like me, all that stuff. And so the whole time I'm sitting with him, I'm like, there's 25,000 people watching me right now, you know, like for the, like technically. And so I kind of get in my head, like I'm getting better at not doing that. But yeah, and then I'll tell them too. And I think it's like once I tell them, being honest is A, it's funny, and B, it's kind of like, it loosens up. It builds trust between us, so it kind of loosens it up. And then it's like, all right, now I can be comfortable because we're laughing about me being nervous and stuff. So, yeah.
What's helped you get from more nervous to less nervous as a whole?
I think just doing it and just doing it enough times. And eventually it's kind of like, there's like a great scene in Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry David's like in this office and the secretary has like an amazing view of the city behind her. And he's like, how long did it take you to get used to that view, like to not care about it anymore? And she was like, a couple of weeks. He was like, it would take me 20 minutes. And I think that's great. There's so many things in life that is pertinent to, but it's also pertinent to like anxiety on podcasts where it's like you're anxious for like 20 minutes and then you're used to it. And it's like you get desensitized to the being on stage in the podcast, on stand-up, all of that. And I just love that scene because it reminds me of all that shit. Even like being famous, if I'm ever like famous, actually, I'm sure it's the same thing where it's like, it's cool for a couple days. And then it's like, oh shit, okay, now it's just, I can't go to the grocery store, you know? Like, so I keep taking your questions way out to left field. But
it's good.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's funny because, like, in a way, by doing creative things, it's like that is, in a sense, what is the result of being good at that.
Right.
Is fame or is accomplishment or success. But it's like that also, like, won't mean anything.
Right.
So it's weird how what we're chasing often won't mean anything, and we realize that.
Yeah.
How does that land on you?
I think like, especially, I feel it the most too when I'll smoke weed sometimes and get anxiety, and I'm like, damn, like all my videos are all online. It feels like I'm always on a stage, and so I guess like, yeah, like it's weird how like ever since a kid I like definitely daydreamed about being that sort of thing, like fame, and then like the closer I get to it, which it sounds kind of lame to just have like a TikTok following and then to say like I'm anywhere near it, but like it's funny how like, okay, like Paul McCartney, I'm sure he's sick of being asked about being in the Beatles. And so when I did this like TikTok thing, like the Teletubby thing, it's like it was like one of the more viral things I did in the beginning. It was all anybody would ask me about. And like, obviously that's not anywhere even close to being the Beatles, but like, I was like, damn, I see what it's like being Paul now. Like, where it's like, he's probably like, stop asking me about shit when I was 25. I'm 80 now. Like, so yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just, we're all racing towards that thing, and then we'll get there and we're like, oh, okay, it's not what I thought it was. But I'm going to find out for myself. That's my goal. I'm going to get there, and then I'm going to get depressed about not liking it, but I'm going to do it because I said I would. So
you mentioned Mark Norman before. How did you and Mark Norman become friends? Let's call it.
Dude, all right. So shout out Gary V, who you've interviewed. So he was making content about like, if you admire somebody, or if there's somebody you want to be like, offer to work for them for free. So during COVID, Mark Norman was doing these like vlogs where he was like in the park, and he was like doing stand up in the park, and the thing I love was he was showing him bomb, even though he was already a respected comedian that was pretty well known, even at that time. He was filming himself in the park doing stand-up for people sitting in grass. They didn't get it. He's coming off like the stage, like wiping his forehead, like that was brutal. And I loved those vlogs. I was like, this is the coolest looking to stand-up ever. So I DM'd him. I was like, dude, I'll film for you for free anytime. And he was like, all right, come to the Stress Factory in September. I was like, no way. Went with my camera, filmed him backstage, filmed the set. We hung out that night. And then I edited the video together, and it did like, at the time, it was one of his maybe like third or fourth best performing video. And so he was grateful for that. And then I did like this podcast where we wrote a joke together, and then he tried it on stage at the end. I had the idea for it, and I texted him like, hey, would you do this? He's like, yeah, I owe you. And then since then, I've just had his number, and I'll annoy the shit out of him. I'll text him stuff. And so but basically the summation of that is like, it works. Text people or offer to work for free, and you'll make a connection with them. Even Trevor Wallace, same thing. Offered to film him for free. He didn't even use what I filmed, but now he follows me. I can text him if I need to. I'm not as nearly as close with him, but he was nice enough to respond and let me film, and now I have a connection with him. So, work for free for people you like.
And you mentioned Gary V before. How do you get involved with him?
Yeah, so I started, I like applied to VaynerMedia like a few times before I even did TikTok. And then summer of COVID, I was heartbroken about a girl, and I was like not making TikToks or anything. And then somebody on his team was like, hey, we need like a TikTok editor for Gary. Are you interested? I was like, sure. Edited for him for 3 months. And then I was like, it was cool at first, but I was like, it's all his videos are like, you got to quit your job and do what you love. And I'm like, dude, like I don't like, his videos were inspiring me to quit his job. So like I quit, like I put in my 2 weeks, and then he FaceTimed me. He was like, yo, I have this idea. Like, you should work for my media company. So then I ended up like moving to that company. But it started out, I just was like editing his TikToks.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then like, at what point do you say to yourself like, all right, like I'm enjoying this. How do I go about doing it myself for myself?
Like, you mean like quitting Gary to do it for me?
Yeah.
It was just like, I hate this. I'm sitting in my parents' house every day, and I'm gonna like I just can't do this. I was just like, I could do. Basically, I was like, I'm going to try and make money off YouTube and TikTok because I already had a following. And I was over the girl. So like that also helped. But yeah, so I was just like, I'm going to quit, and I'm in the comfort of my parents' house. But then he was like, oh, you can work for my company. And so then I moved to that. It was more like, okay, you could do shit for yourself. But yeah, it was just like, I had the privilege and all that crap of like being in my parents' house. So like that was really what made it easy,
For sure. How do you come up with ideas?
It depends. Like the rap video you liked, where it was like I tricked these rappers into featuring on my song. That was like somebody at work. He's like the music guy, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to interview people at Rolling Loud again?" I was like, "Sure." And I was just like, I was coming off the Beeple thing, which was like, literally, it's just like me making somebody laugh in those two instances, which is like, oh, I'm about to talk to this person that's big. And I'm like, I should just do this, right? And they were like, they laughed. So I was
Okay,
like,
explain the Beeple one and explain
okay,
the...
so the Beeple one was, Beeple's like the third most valuable artist alive. And he was going to be at our company because like we made this documentary about him, and I had the and I knew he was going to be there, and I was like, oh, I should just like go up to him and be like, oh, can I show you a magic trick? And then make him draw a stick figure and then just walk away with it. And I told that to somebody in a car, and they laughed, and I was like, and they were like, you got to do that. I was like, all right, I'll try it. And then that ended up going pretty viral. And so, because like sometimes to me, if I like through work, I get to interview cool people, like Young Gravy was one of them. And so sometimes to me, the funny thing to do is be like, how can I walk away with something from like, how can I make this about me? And like, and so like, you know, in a harmless way. And so that was how that one kind of transpired. And then like the rap video, what happened was, you know, I'm going Rolling Loud. I'm going to interview like 15 rap artists. And I was like, oh, it'd be funny to like make them read my raps and put them all in a song. And the guy at work again was like, oh, that's funny. You should do that. I was like, all right. But both like that kind of felt like, you know, when you watch like the Seinfeld or The Office, the later seasons, you could tell they're kind of like, they're writing it as if they're like trying to write the first season again. Like they're like, they found the formula and you could see that they're just following the formula. That's what the rap video was like to me. I hate that video because I'm like, it's just me doing the formula of the last video. So that one was kind of easy to come up with. But other ones like, it's just sitting and thinking or like walking without my phone and then like being like imagining something until I'm like, oh, that's something. And then just like kind of fleshing it out. I'm hoping to make more like short film TikToks moving forward so I can be like less of a vlog guy, you know, like real life, and more like make shit up so that I can eventually like write for TV or movies. But yeah, the way to come up with ideas is just pace without your phone and write them down when they fall upon your head is usually, or you're talking to a friend and then they're like, you know, oh, this happened. And then it makes you think of something and you got to write it down right away. So it's always different, but that's usually how it comes about.
It's fascinating to me that you don't get the same enjoyment from the rap video as the Beeple one because you already did it and it felt like you were exploiting a formula.
Yeah. It's like, it's just like, it was fun and I was like proud of like the song and like all that, but I'm like, it didn't feel like clever or fulfilling or anything like that. It was just kind of like not phoned in, but like, I don't know. Yeah, like it was just like
exploiting the thing that you already knew.
Yeah, which is like I'm like getting something out of my interview for myself. And there's people too, like I have a friend that did a video once on TikTok, and it was her as a clown, and she was smoking a cigarette, and she was like, and it went viral. It was like her first video. She's like, do I have to be a clown for the rest of my life? And I was like, no, like it's your personality that works. But I totally get, you'll see people on TikTok, they'll have a viral video, and then every video after that is like a cookie cutter version of the same thing. And I'm not like shitting on them, but to me, I lose enjoyment after that first one. I'm like, okay, what's next? You know? So yeah.
What would the idea be with interviewing rappers that would have found you fulfillment?
You know, I don't know that there is one. Maybe if I had like fabricated something, like if it was more like if it was something that was clearly scripted but used them as actors in it, maybe. But also, maybe I wouldn't have been fulfilled just by interviewing them. Like, I don't know. It's weird. I think it's just like, it's also too just TikTok and being like, as cool as TikTok is and the ability to like show people like you being creative and stuff and like build a following and all that, there's a level of like, you know, it doesn't reach a certain artistic fulfillment. Like if you're a rock artist or you make really good music and all of a sudden you start going viral because you're making like 30-second songs on TikTok and they're all going viral, eventually you're going to be like, well, I want to make an album, you know? Like, yeah. And so I think that's part of it. And also it's just like, I never wanted to be a prank guy, you know? Like that's what these last two videos were. It's like real life prank stuff. And then I went through my top YouTube videos, and besides some stand-up stuff, it's like vlog in nature. And I'm like, I would rather it be like made up funny things than I went and did this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's not to say that I love those videos when other people do them. That's just not me, I guess.
Yeah. It reminds me of something that it's like almost we're sacrificing something for retention.
Yes.
And I don't know what it is exactly, but I think it's hard to, if you look at a Netflix show that you really like and it doesn't hook you in the first 30 seconds, that's okay.
Yes.
But if you look at a YouTube video and it's not engaging in the first 30 seconds, people click off and then they get upset that people click off. But it's like, there's something beautiful about the Netflix that you let it breathe, that you're like, all right, I'm going to sign up for a season. I'm going to sign up for multiple episodes before I judge it.
But then at the same time, it is interesting how like you watch old films like from like the 50s and stuff, and it's like they do let shit drag. And I'm like, people are like, oh, TikTok's changing the way we watch stuff. And I'm like, is it that, or is it that we just didn't realize we do like shit quicker than we thought? Like the people that made films to start thought we had to let shit drag. And I don't know. I'm not saying like, you know, there's classic great films back then, but like, I don't know if it's changing the way we view things, or we're realizing, oh, like we do like being entertained through every second. And like, although I don't know, there's like a great Louis C.K. bit about like, he talks on Conan about not using his phone because you want to be bored. Sometimes you have to let yourself be bored. So I don't know. I'm still figuring it out myself, but it's fun to ponder.
Yeah, it is. Well, if this is what is going on right now, what is the future of media and consumption in terms of video in general?
I saw somebody posted the other day, I think it was like Lad Bible or something. It was like, the new live-action Hercules movie is going to be inspired by TikTok. And everybody was like, oh, this is trash. And I'm like, does that mean they're going to edit it like a TikTok? Like, is it going to be every second is... Although there's movies like that. Like, I feel like the guy that does, like, Shaun of the Dead, you know, I forget who does that. But, like, there's certain movies that are really fast. But even Scott Pilgrim, like, I feel like that's, like, somewhat TikTok in nature, in that it's, like, very fast-paced editing and cuts and stuff. So, but the future of like this stuff, I don't know. I think it's like maybe more films will be like that, but it's hard to gauge. It's hard to say. Also, like people make their TikToks based on what they see working. Like every YouTube video now feels like a cookie cutter Mr. Beast, where it's like, I did this. I climbed Mount Everest on a treadmill, which actually was a sick video. I saw that. It was a good video, but it's like same style thumbnails, you know, some guy with a lot of something or a lot of time of something. And so it might just be that we're all being inspired by what's happening now, but 10 years from now it might be like slow shit works. I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about it, especially because you're so in it. How much does being in the TikTok algorithm, seeing what's hot, seeing what's trending, impact your thinking and your being?
Well, I don't watch TikTok. I watch YouTube Shorts, but right now it's mostly like it's mostly Muhammad Ali videos.
Really?
I think it's just because I watched like two, and now every video is like Muhammad Ali being interviewed about something. But I enjoy them. But I'm like, why is on my YouTube all Muhammad? So anyway, I don't watch TikTok just because partly I get like in some ways FOMO. I'm like, oh, I should be making something, but also like I don't know, I just don't watch it. Just like and which I think is good. I saw a video of Orson Welles, which, again, I hate to compare TikTok to Orson Welles level filmmaking, but, like, he was like, young filmmakers, stop, what did he say? Don't soak yourself in films. Like, you watch films, of course, but basically, the less you watch, the more you have to say, was, like, his theory. And you're not going to be, like, persuaded by all these other films you watch. And again, I'm not saying that's the case with TikToks, but it might be the microcosm of what he's saying. So sometimes when I do make a TikTok, I think it might be different than what everybody else is making because I don't know what's working. I just know that you have to keep people engaged. I know the core rules, which is like hook them right away, keep them engaged throughout. Don't have anything you're not supposed to have, like in the sense that like keep the watch time high. So
cut the fat.
Yeah, beyond that, I don't need to know what's working on TikTok. As long as you know how to tell a story and keep it interesting, it's gonna do well.
Why do you think we're so fascinated by story in general?
I think it's like maybe biological. It's like they say like because it's like if some guy back then comes into the cave and he's like some guy got eaten by a tiger in the woods, and he tells you it's like we know how to survive through story. Because we're like, okay, we listen to a story and we're like, all right, now I know not to go into the woods at night or whatever. So it's partly that. I don't know. I think you're getting into psychology though, but yeah, it's interesting. That's what I was telling you. I think it was pre-pod, like with podcasts. Like if I were to make a clip out of a podcast, the easiest thing to make go viral is a story because it's like it makes people watch to the end. Usually, commentary is like, oh. This is why I like making TikToks, or like this is what I think about Kanye. But story is like there was a guy in the bar last night and he pulled out a sword, and it's like, oh, what happened next, And so I don't know. It just keeps us engaged.
Okay, so you went to a bar with 100,000 YouTube subscriber plaque. What happened?
Oh, dude, how did you hear? Where did you find this one? You do your homework, I guess. You mind. Yeah, I went to a bar with my plaque. Well, I was walking out of my apartment, and the plaque was in the mailroom on my way out, and I was like kind of running late, but also I was like, to put it in my bag. I don't feel like running upstairs. I'll just put it in my bag, and then I went to the bar for a show, did my stand-up set, and then I was like, hey, you want to see this with my buddy? And he was like, oh, let's see it. Took it out, and then some girl that was in the audience that was talking the whole time came up, and she was drunk, and she was like, oh my God, I guess you were. I should have listened, huh? Like, because I had the plaque. I was like, yeah, I guess so. And then she was
listen
like,
to what?
Sorry, listen to your stand-up set.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, yeah, I guess you should have. And then she was like, oh, can I touch it? Because it's in this like plastic wrap. I was like, sure. And then she touched it. And then
how'd that feel?
It was cool. I was like wielding my micro fame, my YouTube fame, and then she was like, "Oh, you should come drink with us." And there was this guy next to her that was like, "Come on, we gotta go." And she's like, "Hey, you want to come with us?" I was like, "Nah." And then like she like got my Instagram, left, and then she was like DMing me later, like we gotta hang. But like I went to her like tagged photos and realized. Like a photo from like a year before was her and that same guy, and it was like a wedding party. It's her in a wedding dress, and I'm like, no way, dude! Like, no way, a married chick is flirting with me right now. And then, but that was pretty much like we almost hung out, but like I figured it was like an open relationship based on what she was saying, but. We decided against it. I was like, you can't do this. And I talked to somebody later. Was like, no, their relationship's pretty much over. I was like, all right, well then what? It was just weird. Like she was like inviting me to go out to drink with him and her friends, and they weren't married anymore. I don't know. It was weird, dude. But YouTube plaque, dude. All you need is 100K on YouTube, and you can get married chicks. Basically, is the thesis is what I took away from that. You got 100K on YouTube yet?
No.
Nah, you can't get married chicks.
So good. That's an avenue I want to stay away from.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Don't home wreck. Don't home wreck. But if you do, talk about it on a podcast because it's good fodder, I guess.
How much has doing what you've done on TikTok and being in the comedy world, like how much has that impacted your life in terms of like random crazy stories happening?
Not only one, really.
What about Ken?
Oh, you heard, dude. This is the third. God. Oh my God, the Ken story, dude. And I want to tell you probably the Shia LaBeouf story too. But
please.
The Ken story. Well, I did have a good show once, and this girl. Okay, in fairness, I think like we were friends before this, and I misread it as she was into me, I guess. But God, I hate telling this story because I'm just waiting because we're still basically. So I have a good set, right? And this girl that came to see me was like, let's go get drinks. We go and get drinks at this bar. It's like a Russian bar. And there's this old guy sitting next to me in a suit, glasses, and there's a Russian doll on the table on the bar, and I'm playing with it. He's like, oh, that's neat. It's like there's smaller ones inside it. I'm like, that's how Russian dolls work. You know, like you're got to be 50. You've definitely seen Russian dolls. But I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Whatever. And then he gets the same drink I have. And I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. He's like, yeah, yeah. And then so the girl is sitting to this side of me. He's on this side. And she sees I'm talking to him. And she's like, she starts talking to him. And I'm like, all right, we'll do this for a little bit. We'll entertain this weird guy. And he's telling us about being an accountant and stuff. And then I was like, all right, you want to go back to my place or maybe to another bar? And she was like, let's go to another bar. And the guy's name was Ken. And she's like, Ken, do you want to come? And I was like, what? Like, I'm thinking that I'm with this girl. And he's like, you know what? I do. And I'm like, Ken, come on, bro. Like, what are you doing? And so we go outside, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to go anymore. And they were like, really? And she's like, Ken, do you still want to go? I'm like, what? Like, like, no way. And so I texted her. I was like, if you're uncomfortable, I'll still come. Because I was like, I don't know. I felt like maybe she was just being nice to him. And like we're in the taxi and I'm in the middle seat and I'm like car sick and they're talking over me about like weird shit about like Princess Diana being a cover up and how to kill somebody and get away with it. And I'm just like, what are these people? What are they talking about? And then we get to like this jazz club and he's buying a bottle. He's asking if we want food. And I probably, she was probably being smart. She was probably like, let's milk this guy for free food and drinks. But I'm just like, I don't want to be here. So I ended up leaving. And he was like, let me get your info, man. I'll text you. And I would love to meet up again. And I'm like, okay, I guess. And like he texted me that night. He's like, would love to connect again. And she texted me and she's like, Ken's great. And I'm like, I don't care. And we're still friends. Like recently she got me a fun gig that I got to do. And so it's all been out with the wash or whatever. But I get nervous telling this on pods because I'm like, she's going to see it eventually. And she's going to be like, what the hell? Like, it was because of this. And I'll be like, it was because if you do see it, I hope you don't. But I love you. I forgive that night.
Is Ken his actual name?
Yeah.
You're a wild boy for saying. You're wild for using his actual name.
Dude, well, I would say to bleep it, but this is the third pod where I've said Ken, so I'm pretty much in it at this point. And he's a rich accountant that was saying how to kill people and get away with it. So if I go missing, go to my phone, unlock my phone, and go to the Ken. You'll find his number. Just type it in on the search. He'll be like, "Hey, great meeting you last night." You'll find the number. That's who to prosecute. Okay. Good to know. Damn, I'm gonna start making up names for these.
Third pod, you just figured that out.
Dude.
What about Shaw? What about
Shia LaBeouf?
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf.
Okay. Because I tried saying it on stage once. It did well, but I'm like, do I just like make a... All right, I'll just tell you it.
Please.
Okay, so Shia LaBeouf was doing this event. This was like when I was in college. I was a sophomore, and it was right when Trump was being inaugurated. He did this like... I guess it was a protest. It was like him in Queens, in Astoria, at like a museum, in like a dirt lot, and he had a webcam on the wall. And he was just standing in front of it. It was live streaming, and he was just like, he will not divide us. And like doing that all night, and it was supposed to be like, I guess, a protest. So I see this, I go online, and I'm like, oh, it's 30 minutes from where I am in my dorm. And it's raining out, and I look at the webcam, and it's just Shia LaBeouf. Nobody's there. And I'm like, I could go there right now and just chill with Shia LaBeouf. And I asked my friends, I'm like, you guys want to go? And they're like, nah. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going.
How'd you know the location?
So it was like broadcasted. It was like, it's at the Museum of Moving Image or something in Queens. And like I was like, no, there's an A-list celebrity just chilling in this dirt lot, and nobody's there. So I went there, and I get there, and there was like, now there's two, I show up, Shia's in the dirt lot, but there's like two people, maybe three around him. And he's like standing there, he's like, he will not divide us. And people are kind of like, he will not divide. Like, they're not into it. But I show up and I'm into it, dude. I'm like, I started getting it going. I was like, he will not divide us. And like, it started to be more like a sporting event, you know? And like, I was like changing it up, like, he will not divide. And like, we're getting into it. It started to get fun. And then all of a sudden Shia walks away and like sits in the other side of the lot, and obviously we're only there doing it. They're doing it because he's there, so everybody kind of stops. And this guy comes over with a pizza, and he's like, like his delivery guy. He's like, this was sent from London. Somebody called in. They love what you're doing, so this is from London. So I get to like, some guy takes it, and I walk over with him with just napkins, and he like, because I took the napkins, and he like was giving it out, but he went to give it to Shia LaBeouf, and he's like, oh, thanks, man. And I was like, this is sick. Like, we're just like chilling with him, and then these people came to like protest the protest, and they're arguing, and they're like, you know, they're like Trump people, and I tried to keep the peace. I was like, hey, you could say he will not divide us because you believe it. You like Trump. You could say he won't divide us. And it didn't work. They're all arguing. I was like, I'm going to get out of here. And I told all my friends about it when I got home. I was like, dude, I was just with Shia LaBeouf. And they were like, no, what? Like, now it became real, and they thought it was cool. So the next day, they all agree to go. I roll a joint because I'm like, I'm going to smoke this with Shia LaBeouf.
Go where? He's going to do it every day?
He's doing it 24 hours a day.
Oh my God.
Every day he's there. He had a hotel nearby, I think. So he would sleep for a little bit, come back. And the next day, so I rolled up this joint, and my friend's got a bag of mushrooms, because he was like a crazy drug guy that would like experiment with drugs and shit. And he was like, I'm gonna get Shia to eat some shrooms with me. I'll make him if I have to. I was like, all right, I don't know about that, but like, sure. And so we're on Union Square, or we're on 14th Street, like on the sidewalk, and he's got this big tinfoil bag of shrooms, and he's feeding them to us and making us eat them. And like, I didn't really want to eat them, so I had like a couple, but I put them in my pockets. Like when he wasn't looking, I would just put them in my pockets. And then I had the joint too. So now we're on the train, we go there, and today it's a big crowd, and it's like more like, it's like a party, and they're all shouting. And so my friends were all get right in the mix. And I remember seeing my friend like sneaking up to Shia, like the shrooms guy was like sneaking up through the crowd to get to him.
Did Shia recognize you as a day one?
No. He was like, he very much was just there to be in this, like he was in his own little performance art world where he's like, nothing else matters. But, so anyway, so everybody's jumping, saying he will not divide us, right? And then all of a sudden, like 5 cop cars pull up into the lot, like into the road next to this lot we're in. They like speed up, slam on their brakes, and they all run out of their cars at me. Nobody else but me. Start patting me down, and I'm like, oh, is it the shrooms? Is it the joint? And they walk away, come back, pat me down again, and the whole crowd's watching me. Shia LaBeouf's watching, and then they're like, all right, he's good, and they walk back to the cars. And I'm like, what the hell was that? So I like walked up to the cars, and the first guy I talked to is like, I'm like, hey, what was that? He's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, what do you mean don't worry about it? And then like the big sergeant comes over, and he was like, hey kid, come here. And I was like, what's up? And he was like, so we got a phone call from somebody that said that a guy in a red hat had a firearm at this event, and you have a red hat, but what we realize is the only other person here that has a red hat is Shia LaBeouf. So somebody called as a prank to say Shia LaBeouf had a firearm. They were hoping he'd get arrested, and I just showed up at the wrong time. And I was like, oh, okay. So they gave me this little like thing that said I got frisked, and I was like, the whole crowd kind of dispersed now. And I forget the order of operations. I think it was, I went up to Shia because people are getting photos with him, and I was like, "Hey, can I get a photo with you?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "So they thought you were me?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I got a joint though. If you want to smoke, I rolled it so we could smoke it with you." And he was like, "Yeah, maybe when the cops leave because I'm on probation." And I was like, "Okay." And then now everybody's like away from the camera that's live streaming. And mind you, I'm kind of, I've eaten shrooms at this point. I don't feel them that much, but I feel them. And I went up to the camera. And my naive college kid brain is like, oh, I'm going to like try and be funny for this camera. And I was like, oh, you guys tried getting me arrested. Real funny. But like, I said like something like make me a meme, guy in red hat. Just me wanting to be famous without any sort of effort, right? I'm just like, I'm going to say shit to this camera. And I probably like had a bad set, you know. I probably said like unfunny things in hindsight, but I walk away from the camera and I look at my Twitter, and right away, like notifications coming in, like this guy, like some are fans, like, oh, you're funny, but some are like cringe, idiot, like mean shit. And I was like, oh no. And like all of a sudden I get a phone call from my mom. And she's like crying. She's like, I don't know what's happening. There's people commenting on my Instagram saying you're a whore, and like calling her like names. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what happened. And then she's like sent me a screenshot. Somebody DM'd her like, hey, I frequent gay bars with your son. He's addicted to coke, and I'm worried about him. Oh my God. Just getting creative, like really trying to like, I don't know, like so creative that like she has to believe it, because like why would they? Where do you pull that out of your ass? Like they knew that if they made some random story up, and then they were like, somebody, oh, and so because like the thing was that I had a firearm, right? Like they photoshopped me with a rifle at this event and sent it to her, and she's like, you have a gun at this event? I'm like, no, like it's just the internet, like. I don't know what happened, and then I ended up talking to like the museum curator was there, and he was like, "Oh, you gotta deactivate your socials because they'll hack it. They hacked our website." And like I'm on shrooms now, and like my phone is yelling at me, like I'm like trying to understand the fabric of the universe, but also like figure out why people online are calling me gay. You know, like that's what they're saying. Like just like the word, name a slur, they called me it. Like it was they sent a picture of my niece. Like she's like 3 years old. They sent it to my mom, and they were like, looks like a Jew or something. Like crazy shit, dude. I was like, what the hell, dude? And then I deactivated everything.
They were this upset because you had a bad set, basically?
No, you know what it was? I think it was a mix of like, so this event, there's actually a documentary that was made about this event that I tell the story in. And I was glad that I got to tell it here because I was a little more charismatic than I was in that documentary. I was a little nervous. I was like, But that event ended up having like, it's kind of a cool story. Like these people on Reddit basically hated this event, whether or not it was because they liked Trump or just because they didn't like Shia LaBeouf's, what they saw as performative activism or whatever. They kept getting this event shut down. And so he would move locations. And eventually... the final place that he had this event was a camera pointed up at the sky with a "He will not divide us" flag, right? And it was like just sky and the flag, and they pinpointed this location based on flight patterns. They saw planes overhead and constellations. They were able to figure out the general location of this flag, and then the final way they found the location was they had somebody they had it like, I think it was like a 10-mile, maybe 5-mile radius. And so they had somebody go to this location, the 5-mile radius, and drive around town beeping their horn.
Oh my God.
Until somebody on the live stream heard the horn. And then they like fucked with the flag. I don't know what they did. They like fucked with the flag, and they finally shut it down. But
have you seen that guy GeoRaider? A little side note here. This dude he's on TikTok. I don't know if it's GeoRaider or something else, but he'll basically be able to find any position on the map based on a quick look at it.
It was like that,
wow,
dude. Like and it was like, so you know, I was like a character in this story that to them was like a villain. That was part of it, I guess, and they might have just been like, this kid sucks. You know, I don't know what it was, but it was definitely like. It was a scary few moments where I realized the power of the internet, and also, oh wow, like it didn't feel like it. It's like a little webcam on a wall, and I'm like, oh, I'm just like talking to it. You neglect that there's an audience of possibly 100,000 watching you. So there was that too. But yeah, I deactivated, and then like
deactivated what?
My social media is just for a few days, and like it kind of died down. I had a YouTube video that ended up getting like 100 dislikes that there was no views, but then they all went and disliked my shit, and like it was scary, dude. I was just like, damn, like did I just make myself a joke of the internet? But yeah, that was my my Shia LaBeouf bit. I once in a while to this day, people will be like, is that the red hat guy?
Wow.
But like, yeah.
Have you spoken to Shia since?
No. I mean. I got the okay to smoke a J with him, but then once all that happened, right after, I was like, I'm getting out of here. My friends, we went home. We went to like an Applebee's in Times Square, and they just like talk me off the metaphorical ledge.
Right.
Yeah.
How does that imprint on you, like going forward, creating content, like having that experience?
Not really. Like, I guess I kind of think about how, like, you know, you can go viral easier than you think. Like, I think that's part of it. Like, people are like, they're dying to go viral and they think it's some like mystical thing, but it's like, nah, like, you know what I've realized? It's this. It's like, it's easy to go viral, but not for the reasons you want. It's much harder to make something you're proud of and go viral. So, like, yeah, anybody could go like shit on the Statue of Liberty and go viral, but you don't want to be the guy that shit on the Statue of Liberty. And I think that's kind of what I realized, which is, yeah, it's easy to get people to look at you, but it's not always for the reason you want.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway. What about getting people to look at you for interviewing Ariana Grande and Tom Holland?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was fun. I just was like,
explain that to people.
Okay, so I just, you know, I realized that if people do webcam interviews, it's much easier to fake that you're interviewing them, because you know, you don't have to be in the same location. Like, if I had to fake being here with you, I would need something that looks like this. But if they're, you know, during COVID, everybody was doing webcam interviews, so I can make it look like I was interviewing them. And so I would just like watch an interview of Tom Holland or Ariana on webcam, find the most like poignant things they would say. Like, in the case of Tom, there's a moment where he stands up and shows his bare legs because he's like, there was a joke running where he was like, oh, I do my webcam interviews without pants. And so I was like, all right, I clipped that. I'm like, all right, I'm going to make it look like Tom's flashing me. Like, and so I watched that, and then you just like piece together a little story. So I'm like, with Tom, I was like, oh, how does it make you feel when they talk about Spider-Man's bulge? And he's like, there was a moment in the interview where he's like, oh, it's way bigger than it used to be. But he's talking about his trailer. But I was like, oh, I'm going to make it sound like he's talking about his bulge. And then I have him flash me and stuff. So like, that stuff was fun because it's funny and it's like clearly fake. And I don't mind people looking at me for that because it's comedy. You know, it's not like something like, you know, like I said, shitting on the Statue of Liberty, or just like begging people to look at me for some other reason. So that was fun. I do wonder if he's seen it. I have to assume he's seen it because it's got like 30 million views, I think. Jeez. And so I'm sure, because the world's smaller than you'd think. I'm sure there's somebody that is remotely close to him. It's like, hey, did you see this? I just hope he wasn't like, oh, fuck this guy. And then there was other comments too that was like, oh, Weird Al used to do fake interviews. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. Like, even nightly shows, they would make it look like you're interviewing the president. It's like, I didn't mean it as if I like had some novel idea, but because the video that went the most viral was me explaining how I did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could see this the whole time. I didn't realize. That's pretty. Oh, it looks good.
Yeah, you look good, man.
Thanks. Oh, I'm glad I wore this shirt. See my pink socks.
So,
Cool.
like, at your core, what would you describe yourself as? Like, is it a comedian? Is it an actor? Is it a filmmaker? Is it something else? Like, how would you, like, what fills you with the most joy in your soul, and what are you?
I'm still figuring that out. I get pretty sad sometimes because I'm like, what the hell am I doing with my life, you know? So I don't know. Just a guy that likes making stuff, I guess. You know Bo Burnham? You watch him at all?
I've heard of him. I've never watched him.
Definitely check him out. He's
Where
great.
should I start?
Great question. I would start with one of his music specials that aren't Inside. Inside is like his most recent one, but it's like it's a little. I mean, you could start with that one, but it's like a slower burn at times, and it's also like darker than others. But he just does like musical comedy. But one of the running themes in his stuff is like, oh, I just want to be funny. Like, he's like, oh, I just want to be a comedian and make people laugh and stuff. But like, it really feels like he wants to be like a savant or like Da Vinci, you know, like, because he's like very like, he's much more than a comedian. He's like a filmmaker, like whatever. And so I aspire to be that cool. I don't know that I could do it, but like filmmaker, I just like making shit, and I would like to make music. That's cool. Like maybe for movies, like I like the soundtrack to Up. Like I feel like I could make something like that. Like, I don't know. I just like making shit, and I'm figuring it out day by day. And a year from now, I might be like, oh shit, like finance. I just want to be a finance guy. Like, I don't know. Like, sometimes I'll do a pod. There was another pod I did where they were like, oh, you said this on a pod. I was like, I did? Like, yeah, you said you wanted to be something like this. I'm like, oh, well, that's not the case anymore. So I don't know. It's weird doing pods. Like, it's weird being interviewed because it's like, it feels like I enjoy it, but I'm like, damn, it's not like I feel like I'm you ever have a birthday and everybody's singing for you, and it's like, oh, come on, yeah, enough. It's all right. Like, I feel that's what this feels like sometimes. I'm like, I'm just a guy.
You're just a guy. We're all just guys.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's helpful to shine a light on a guy or a girl and to look at them and be like, what is it? What is your experience right now? And how is this experience shaping what the things you're creating and putting out into the world?
Yeah.
And so that's what I hope to do. I don't hope to sing happy birthday for no reason. I hope to ask, what does this birthday mean to you? How is this landing on you? And how could you use this birthday to reflect into a better reality going forward? That's kind of what I hope to do by these interviews.
That's sick. What is your long-term goal? What do you want to be?
I want to sell out Madison Square Garden for a live podcast.
That's sick. That's really cool.
And so I say all this to say, like, I'm doing the thing right now, and I find fulfillment in the thing, and I just want to make it bigger. And it sounds kind of similar to you, where you're like, you are doing the thing that you want to be doing. You just want to do the art bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
Which really resonates.
Yeah, it's just like it goes back to that thing. It's like, 30-second song versus an album. Like, and you're creating that larger thing. You want to get the audience to be bigger, it seems.
100%. What is a challenge you could leave people with? I often like to end these podcasts with challenges because I feel like you could talk all you want, but what is the person going to do that's listening in their next thing, in their life, in their day-to-day, or their week, or their month, or how should they think? And so I like to spur some action at the end of these. Is there anything that comes to mind for a challenge?
A challenge. I guess do that thing that you don't want to do. So it's like, but it's better for you. So like, I think, or maybe even, let me think. It's hard because people, we all want different things. So it's like, if you want to be a creator or an artist or whatever, I would challenge you to like make a TikTok. Some people like look down upon it, but I'm like, no, like have your voice be heard, like add to the conversation. Like I would say, like, put yourself out there. But like for people that want to just like listen, what do you think let me ask you that. What is your audience?
I would say they're people who are creators, entrepreneurs, people who are thoughtful, people who are trying to, they're looking at the world of content and saying like, I'd like to do that too.
Okay.
Or like an entrepreneur, somebody creating something and putting that out.
I would say make something that you are interested in making, but feel like it would like be too weird or you're nervous to post for your current audience or your friends and family. I would say I would challenge you to just do it and then accept that they're going to see it and it doesn't matter what they think. Because that's something I struggle with even is like I'll make like I want to make I wrote something yesterday where it was like a more like sad and like fake and it's a voiceover and it's like it's not normally what I'm doing. So I feel like that's what I want to challenge people to do is like make something and post something that you're uncomfortable to and then realize, oh, this isn't a big deal.
The funny thing about TikTok and how social media is going currently is that it's more friendly to that. In that if something is seen by less people, like your post today, it doesn't have to do anything with the post you did yesterday.
Yeah.
And so you would think like you know that, and so you therefore will just post whatever comes to mind. You'll post an interesting thought you just had for 3 seconds, but it seems like you're still having trouble with that idea.
For sure. I mean, It's just like because the bigger following, I assume more people will see it. But also on Instagram, it's like everybody I've ever met. It's like a little Pokedex of like anybody that I know is following me. So like my aunt is gonna see it. You're gonna see it.
But I'm not. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily going to.
Yeah.
And you're assuming that every person who follows you is going to see it, but I don't think social
Right.
media works like that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That is what I like about the algorithm too. Is it's like if the video is bad, it doesn't serve it to anybody.
Well,
Bad,
exactly.
Relatively bad. Like if it's
Exactly.
not, but like if it's like designed to be like, oh, people aren't watching this, so we're not going to show it. It's like it really has to be a very cringy, bad video for it to go viral because it's bad. Like, you know how like The movie The Room, you know that movie?
I've heard of it, but
Yeah, it's like considered to be like a very, very bad movie, and it's a viral cult classic because of that.
Yep.
That's not going to happen to you. Like, I just bring up the worst possible scenario. I'm like, don't worry though, it's not going to be that you won't be the laughing stock of the internet. I bet, you know, but you won't. You really won't. Like the way the pipes are designed is like only good shit that's resonating and people are watching will be shown. So if you make something that you're not sure about, you don't have to worry about people seeing it. Yeah. And that goes for me too. I should be looking in the mirror to say this, but I believe things and I know them to be true, but to then adopt them to my own life is harder said than done, but I do know it's true.
It's easier to give the advice to somebody else and then taking it
Yeah,
yourself can
'cause
sometimes be the difficult part.
Yeah, because I have like comedian friends that are like, oh, dude, I don't know about it. I'm like, dude, who gives a fuck? But if I was in their shoes, I'd be like, oh, same thing. So, you just need the outside perspective sometimes.
Yeah, the best advice I've heard on this is from my friend Nat Eliason, who says, imagine your child was coming to you with the thing that you're thinking about right now. What advice would you give them? So I will end this podcast with that idea. And I'm so grateful for you for coming on.
Dude, thanks for having me. I'm honored. This is, I love this. I was so flattered to be asked. This was very enjoyable.
Hell yeah. So send people, and where would you like to connect people with you?
My Instagram, Sean Millea, SeanMillea. And I like to do this thing where I give a little secret phrase. DM me the secret phrase so I know you got to this point in the pod.
Hell yeah, I love that.
Let's see. Purple plant.
Purple plant.
That's the secret phrase.
Give this man a bunch of purple plants.
Let's go.
Purple plant emojis.
Hell yeah.
Enjoyed.
Sweet. Thank you.
Appreciate you.